Hello and welcome to At the Buzzer with Karl and Dan. I'm Daniel Levy alongside Karl Mogline, and today we're going to be running down a few topics for you guys. We're going to be spanning quite a few sports, going from basketball, of course, talking about the big news of today, LeBron James's decision to return back to Cleveland, and we're going to wrap it up with, believe it or not, some talk about soccer, which doesn't get talked about a lot in America, and we're going to be talking about if that's going to change. Karl, you want to introduce our first topic?
You know what? I would love to. Starting off, I believe, we are. LeBron's decision. Does this give him redemption over the first decision, which he has admitted was a mistake? I mean, he brings out the big ESPN crew. He has the boys and girls sitting in the audience about to tell him their favorite player is leaving their hometown. I mean, he's himself admitted it was a mistake. All right, I'm just going to go over the format real quickly. Here's how it works. Both of us get a minute to do our statement. If you go over the minute, buzzer sounds and you're out of time. So, Daniel, you want to go first?
Sure, I will go first. And is my time started?
Your time starts now.
Oh, boy. I think that while LeBron's decision, while it's admirable that he decided to go back to his hometown, I think that, again, the way he did it was pretty obnoxious, releasing a personal essay on Sports Illustrated. I don't agree, again, with the way he did it. He somehow managed to create a spectacle of himself while trying to stay separated from the entire situation. I'm still not the biggest fan of LeBron because of what he did to Cleveland in 2010. And if I'm a Cleveland Cavaliers fan, I'm still not satisfied. I wouldn't have wanted LeBron James to come back to Cleveland for that reason, because of the way he left them. I think that disloyalty is something that takes longer than 4 years to recover from, and I don't think LeBron's earned it yet. And if I'm the Cavaliers, I still am unhappy. And I feel like Dan Gilbert apologizing was, since he wanted to recruit LeBron, the right decision, I feel like ultimately he didn't have anything to apologize for. What he said was absolutely correct.
All right, Daniel, right in time. Good job there. And that brings us to me. And I'm going to start my time, my singular minute. Now, here's what I think. I think LeBron knows his first was a mistake, but the fact is, a Sports Illustrated essay is not the worst thing they do. He purposely said he didn't want a press conference for this one. He didn't want something like that. He wanted to have his statement there. People can read over it, and people can get the idea. He doesn't have to have any further follow-ups, shall you say. I think he has matured. 4 years can do a lot in 2 rings. He's coming back not for the money and probably not for the best chance to win a title. And if you read the essay, he says it's because he wants to bring a title to where he's from. Because back when nobody cared where he was playing basketball, he was there. And I think he's being loyal to his city. I think it's the opposite of what you say, and the disloyalty. I think he went away to win his championships, but now he's back so he can win another one in Cleveland.
I agree that ultimately, throughout the span of his career, he's been loyal to Cleveland in the sense of, I feel like he had to have known he was going to return. But I think that the way he left Cleveland, the way he left Cleveland fans, if I were a Cavs fan, I would not be able to forgive him, even though he's now showing this new loyalty to Cleveland. And I don't see a way in which LeBron doesn't spend the rest of his career there. And I would like to say the future for the Cavs is really bright. And if I'm a Cavs fan, I'm looking forward to that. But I think the Cavs could have gotten it done without LeBron. And I don't know if I would have wanted to someone who single-handedly destroyed the franchise that
but the
Cleveland.
problem is, Dan, if I may, I don't think you can do it without LeBron. This franchise has struggled, and I think this is what they need to do if they want to win within the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm. In the next couple of years, they would have had to have brought in talent like LeBron. But I think that with the over the accumulation of so many first overall picks, so many lottery picks, the Cavs have set up a pretty solid foundation for themselves with or without LeBron. I think it would be hard to argue that the Cavaliers in this Eastern Conference, even without LeBron, would be a solid lower seed in the playoffs. And now they have LeBron, obviously they've sort of shot up to the top of the NBA. But I think even with LeBron, still they won't be able to contend for a title within the next couple of years.
Yeah, but then you have to bring. All right, I think that does actually. I mean, that comes into our next topic, the Cavs' future. So if you want to move on, you can give your opening statement. This is basically when can the Cavaliers contend, and what do they need to do to get there, Dan? And I'll give you your minute now.
Okay, I think if LeBron wants to prove his loyalty to Cleveland, what he's going to do is he's going to take the young guys on this team, he's going to mentor them and put them under his wing, and through LeBron's teaching and through the foundation that the Cavs have already set up, I think that the future for the Cleveland Cavaliers cannot be described as anything but incredibly bright. I see multiple championships in their future. I see LeBron's legacy in Cleveland being a good one, despite what he did. I think within the next couple of years, those Cavs fans who would be like me and haven't forgiven him, I think that the second that title rolls in, they'll forget all about it, because that's the ultimate goal, is winning a title, and I think that the Cavs have a good chance to do that. Maybe not this year, but after their talent develops, after we see what Andrew Wiggins can do, I think that the Cavs have a really good foundation.
All right, I guess then to me, and with my opening statement before we get into the final debate and on really basketball in this episode, here's the thing. I think it all hinges on whether or not Kevin Love comes in this year. Right now, the current trade offer from Cleveland is Dion Waiters, 2013, and really kind of not a bust yet, but disappointing rookie season from Anthony Bennett. He's on there. Dion Waiters, Anthony Bennett, and a first rounder. But according to sources, the Timberwolves want more. They want their biggest thing is they want Andrew Wiggins, the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft. So it's a question of whether or not they're going to be able to find a way out. Love has said he's very Actually, I believe the word was intrigued about going. But I think if Love goes, they could win a title this year, or at least easily win the Eastern Conference, because it's kind of a weaker conference. But you know what? Otherwise, I see them winning once Kyrie Irving does mature a little bit more, and Andrew Wiggins. So yeah, by 2016, I see them easily in the title contention.
I agree. However, the only part I really don't... There are two parts I don't agree with. One, the Kevin Love trade, and two, the fact that the Cavs can contend for the Eastern Conference title this year. I think that if they do bring in Kevin Love, then... Well, first of all, let's talk about the Kevin Love trade. I don't think that's a really good move for the Cavaliers. I think that they're in the best situation that they can be in, short of finding the money to bring in a guy like Paul Gasol or someone else on the free agent market, which I know that they can't do because they've pretty much spent all of their money on LeBron. Now, here's the thing. Kevin Love is not a particularly defensive player. He's a great scorer, but the Cavs just picked that up in LeBron. They have Andrew Wiggins, a guy who can defend, who can play on the offensive side, who can really do it all. He's a great athlete. And I think that if I'm the Cavs, I would rather give him time to develop and have a brighter future than try to go for it all this year by bringing Kevin Love and giving a huge part of your future away, because Andrew Wiggins is arguably the player with the most upside on that Cavs team.
I think the only way you really can do this is if you can get Love in a signing trade.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can bring him in for 4 years or so. Because I say if you can be able to bring in Love with at least 4 years up, with the 1-year contract, I'm very nervous about this trade. But if you're looking at 4 years, Dion Waiters, no offense, and he's not an outstanding player. He's more of a bargaining chip in this deal.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, if you send especially if you send Andrew Wiggins, it's questionable whether or not you need to send a first rounder too. If you send Andrew Wiggins and maybe a couple other pieces, maybe you don't need that first rounder to go, and you can draft somebody that LeBron really likes, and you can build this team around him.
And,
so that's what you're looking.
Another interesting piece, and while I still think that trading Andrew Wiggins is definitely not the way to go, an interesting thing is LeBron mentioned in his essay a lot of players on the Cavs that he's really going to enjoy teaming up with. And one of the most surprising ones they left out was Andrew Wiggins. So
he also left out Anthony, but I believe he only brought up 4 players. Nothing. And specifically, he brought up Kyrie because Kyrie Irving is, an up-and-coming point guard and the star of the team. And he brought up Andrew Varejao as well because that's a guy he was very well known as being close with Andrew Varejao back when he was playing with the Cavs. And I mean, Andrew Varejao may be one of the players who's played the longest with the Cavs. He's almost a face of that franchise, or at least the hair of the franchise.
Well, but you see LeBron's talking about in his essay about how he can't wait to take on a leadership role, being able to mentor players as opposed to teaming up with stars. He's getting himself into a situation where he's with a bunch of young players whom he can teach and take under his wing. And I find it odd that he didn't mention Andrew Wiggins, who, as I said earlier in the show, arguably has the most upside on that Cavaliers team.
Yeah, and I see what you're saying, but I think it's just the issue is he didn't mention he mentions a few guys, and the biggest thing is that Andrew Wiggins, I've heard basically he has the highest upside of those prospects. That's why he went number one. Mm-hmm. Jabari Parker is the one who's probably going to win Rookie of the Year. He's the best right now.
Yes,
but
he's the most NBA.
Right away, if you want to win now, which is, I don't know if LeBron really wants to rebuild. That's the thing. I know that rebuilding is not really on his timetable, and I think if you want to win now, you have to go for Love.
But I don't see a scenario in which LeBron and Kevin Love's games really complement each other. Like, yes, it would be really cool to see them team up because they're two elite scorers in the NBA, but do you really need two elite scorers on your team? You have Kyrie Irving who can dish out 10 assists and get LeBron the ball and get him in a position to score 25, 30 points a game. But do you really need Kevin Love coming in? Like, I feel like it would be more worth their while to... And I think it's unfair to call the Cavs a rebuilding project at this point. I think the rebuilding's over. They just have to wait for everything to come together. And I think that bringing in LeBron, the team's going to gel in a couple of years. And I think he said it himself, his patience will be tested. He's not prepared to win a championship right off the bat. And I think that LeBron stepping into this mentor role is better than LeBron teaming up with another star to go after a championship this year.
My question, when I look at this, what I see Kevin Love, he can play as either a center or a power forward normally. That's the normal place you can see him playing. Either one of those, especially with the center being kind of a dying position in the NBA.
Right.
LeBron can play a lot of places as well. Normally he's up on the forward side. But he can, small or power are both fine positions for him.
LeBron can play and guard any position in the NBA, any player in the NBA.
I think that you stick him, if you can stick him as your power, and you put Kevin Love at center, then you're in a legitimate spot because you've got Kyrie in the backcourt. And then, I think you can, if you send Wiggins out and you can get Love in for a long-term deal, at least 3 or 4 years, I think it's the right thing to do. Otherwise, I don't think you do it for the 1 year. You don't go in this for the 1 year. I don't think they win a championship even with Love this year. I think they would need another year probably to do that. I don't see them winning a title until next year. That maybe an Eastern Conference because the Eastern Conference is pretty weak, but especially if the Bulls get Carmelo, they're going to be hard to beat.
And honestly, if the Bulls do get Carmelo, I think that about sums up the Eastern Conference. There's really no team that can beat that starting lineup. But that is a topic for another day. Carmelo is a very interesting situation because there have been multiple reports that he's going to New York, that he's going to LA, but those have all been false. And we don't really know what his situation is. And he's remained oddly silent after the LeBron news when everyone expected him to speak up today. Anyway, I just to close this off because we got to move on to our next topic. I really don't think that the Cavs need two big scorers. I think that if you can have Wiggins' defensive ability along with LeBron's unbelievable ability in every phase of the game, I think that that's really. I think that big three of Kyrie, Wiggins, and LeBron is something that you can really build a great team around and a great dynasty around. I think that bringing Kevin Love, who's not getting any younger, he's not a veteran yet, but I think that it really wouldn't be the smartest move for the Cavs.
You know what? Just to close out, and then I'll move on to the next topic. Andrew Wiggins is a shooting guard and small forward. He can play either of those positions. But if you take him in the shooting guard role, you could be looking at one of the best backcourts in the NBA, at least up and coming with Wiggins and Kyrie.
Yeah.
So that brings us to our next topic. It's an interesting issue that has not been talked about a ton, and that is the issue of Tommy John surgery. It's a surgery on the ulnar collateral ligament and it's pretty famous now. The thing is, it was first performed, obviously, on Tommy John, and it's since become more popular in MLB. Specifically, here's the thing. In 2012, there were 36 cases of this. But the thing is, before 2012, fewer than 20 UCL revisions in the last 15 years. I mean, that's such a smaller number. The question is, do we need to slow the velocity? What can the MLB do, and should they do anything about this somewhat of an epidemic now, especially with players throwing faster and faster? Dan, your minute starts now.
Well, I think that there's no real way to regulate it. I mean, obviously this is a terrible thing, and obviously it's something that has sort of crippled the MLB in a lot of ways, because you have these big number one, big name pitchers that are out for extended periods of time. Steven Strasburg has yet to play a full season for the Nationals. Anyway, now the thing is, every single pitch these guys throw, it has the potential to rip that ligament and cause the need for Tommy John surgery. And I just don't think. And look, if you have an idea, feel free. But how can you regulate the velocity that players can throw? I mean, these guys know what they're getting into. They know that it's a game. Even though it's baseball, there's no contact. It's still a game. Any sport, there's an injury risk. And I think that these guys know what they're getting into. And I think that they kind of have to deal with those consequences. I think that the MLB should do everything that they can in terms of research and in terms of funding to prevent the injury from happening, but I don't think that there are any real regulations you can place on it.
Okay. I guess good points there in your opening statement. That brings me to mine. I think this is an issue that does need to be faced. Here's the thing. I especially look at a guy like Mark Burley. Very, very low injuries and throws a pretty slow pitch. He reaches 90 somewhat, but he doesn't get into that 100 range. And he's still very successful this year. I think that there needs to be something in the way that we teach pitchers, where it comes back down to the fundamental youth levels that throwing fast is not the most important thing. That control, and actually that's what wins you games. So I think that when I look at that, I've got to think of that, and then every single pitcher, it seems like at some point is going down with this. I just see pitcher after pitcher, out. And think about Matt Hart. In 2013, he played 100. He pitched 180 innings. Was fantastic. 2.27 ERA. Now, out. Tommy John. Looks like Masahiro Tanaka, the Yankees ace right now, could be out. I think this is too much of an epidemic to actually realize. And the thing is, you just cut it back by 5 miles per hour or something and focus on control more than speed. And I think that's what you need to do. You just need to teach at the youth levels. Control and pitch is better than this 100 mile per hour fastball.
I actually do agree with teaching control, but I think once you get to that MLB level, throwing 90 miles an hour is still putting you at risk for tearing that ligament. I really don't think that there's a way for these players to prevent it. It's always going to be a problem. I definitely agree teaching control over velocity is a big thing that can be done to help this. But I don't see any real regulations that the MLB can put into effect that will really change it. That will effectively.
I see where you're coming at there. I just think you make them back down. Maybe Little League has to do something. Maybe high school sports organizations have to do something. I don't know if it's regulating the speed, but I think it's more about what's important. And if you look at what you need to do to get people out. Honestly, I mean, it's that simple. If a pitcher is a better pitcher, it'll show up in their statistics. And right now, the best pitchers are the guys who are throwing the hardest. And so until we can teach pitchers to throw better than they are now, I think you're going to have issues. I think that a lot of these pitchers they throw a lot really hard, but some of those guys with really hard fastballs, you see them getting hit all the time, and then again, I bring up Berlin. And I bring up these guys who've been in the league 15 years or 10 years, no Tommy John surgery, and a guy who's a rookie who's getting Tommy John surgery. I think that's my biggest issue, is that these guys are getting it so fast in their career, and I think a 90-mile-per-hour fastball really does limit your chance of injury. And, I mean, this is a nasty injury. It's not an easy surgery to go find it.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, yes, teaching control is a big way to improve this, but at the same time, I played Little League, and they don't let you throw, like, at a young age, you're only allowed to throw fastballs. You're not taught how to throw a curveball, and you're not allowed to throw one in-game. And because those have their own injury risks. I mean, especially at a young age, curveballs and breaking balls can damage the arm in as many ways, if not more, than throwing a hard fastball. And that is at a young age where velocity isn't a real issue. But when you get to the MLB, I just don't see a way to stop it. I feel like research needs to be done. I feel like it needs to be done more on the scientific and prevention end rather than doing it on the regulation and stopping it from happening end.
Okay, I think that does bring us to the end. We both a little differing opinion on there, but both agree that if something can be done, it probably should be. That moves us on, and Dan, do you want to introduce this next topic?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of talk in the past few years about concussion regulations and concussion and injury issues in football in general. And so the overarching topic is, how safe is football? Should our children be allowed to play football? So the question on the table here is, would you let your kid play football? Karl, your minute starts now.
All right, here's what I think. I say that the biggest thing that needs to happen right now is USA Football is an organization trying to do this. The biggest thing is coaching. I mean, we look at these guys, and again, I think time and time again, whenever you look at big issues in sports, almost always, if you look at the youth level, that's the biggest way to do this. An NFL player who's already been taught how to play the game is not going to reteach themselves how to play the game. It's instinct, it's muscle memory. Mm-hmm. Well, let's make that muscle memory to, go for the chest, wrap up. There's not a foolproof helmet that's going to fix all your problems. There's still going to be concussion risks. But the problem is, concussions are a big issue when you're hitting helmet to helmet, and they're a lot less of an issue when you're going right for the chest. And it's not just on tackling, too. You need to teach this in the lines, in the trenches. A block, you know what? In the line with linemen, they're not always caring about whether or not they're hitting you in the head, or if their head is hitting you. You know what? It's all about teaching this at a fundamental level. Until now, I seriously have issues with having my kids play football.
I agree with a lot of that. I think that it really, much like the Tommy John issue, I think it comes down to just doing as much research as possible. But I think at the end of the day, on the NFL's end, they really need to regulate this more than they have. And they've been doing a good job. I'll give Roger Goodell credit for that. But I think that more needs to be done because, look, a fine isn't going... If I'm an NFL player, if I'm making NFL money, a fine isn't going to stop me from going after someone and hitting them with my head. It's just not. There's, why do I care? All I care about if I'm an NFL player making NFL money is winning. That's my top priority, and if hitting someone with my head is going to get me the win, I don't care. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is the NFL regulating, and at the younger level, I think coaching is a big thing. I completely agree. They need to be taught to wrap up, and they need to be taught to tackle correctly, and I think that's an issue with a lot of those in-house football leagues that have coaches who are just dads who played a couple years in high school, maybe a year or two in college. I think that they really don't know what they're doing and what they're talking about in a lot of situations, and I think that they're not really enforcing this as much as they should. And I think an issue that comes up a lot is should there be contact in practices? I think absolutely there should, but it should be correct contact. It shouldn't be, when you're doing the Oklahoma drill, which is two people running at each other, basically, and, tougher guy wins, stronger guy wins, harder hit wins, lower man wins, etc. I think that it needs to be more about fundamentals, more about wrapping up and doing it the right way rather than doing it the hardest. I think that a lot of things my coaches will always say is lower man wins, and I think that needs to be taught across the country because that's really just as good as hitting someone with your head, is getting low and wrapping him up and bringing him down.
Yeah, it's a fundamental issue, and right now, I hate to say do nothing in the NFL, but I don't think you can do a lot. I don't think you can reteach someone how to ride a bike.
Yeah, I agree that reteaching and recoaching it isn't going to happen, but I think that in terms of penalties, I think that they should enforce strong, very, very strong penalties. Helmet-to-helmet contact is what? If it's a 15-yard penalty. I think it needs to be more than that. I know that there isn't more than a 15-yard penalty, but I think it needs to be suspensions. I think it needs to be loss of downs and 15 yards. I think that there is a lot more ways that the NFL can enforce this rather than, I think, because if you get a scapegoat, if you get someone who messes up and who you penalize hard, players are going to learn to stop it because players want to be on the field. If you suspend someone for hitting someone for helmet-to-helmet contact, then other players are going to listen. And when I say helmet-to-helmet contact, I don't mean severe helmet-to-helmet contact. I mean anything minor. If you suspend them for a game, players are going to take notice. And sure, they might be mad, and sure, they might say exactly what you're saying, that they've been taught away and they can't change it. I think that they're going to learn to because ultimately they want to be on that field. And if it means not hitting with their heads, then they're going to do that.
All right. I think interesting ideas about whether or not how we really should regulate youth football and in the NFL and how they connect. In the youth organizations, obviously millions to just a select few thousand when you're getting up to the NFL. So it's a different scale all over. That brings us to our last topic of the day, on at the buzzer. So here we go. Soccer in America. The World Cup fever has hit us all, but will we go back to our normal temperature on this sport after this event? And is soccer going to grow, and are we ever going to be able to become a real top world-class competitor when we have so many athletes going to other sports and other things? Soccer in America. What is the situation, and what does our future look like? Your minute starts now.
Soccer in America, that's something that I honestly never thought would actually manifest itself, but it somehow has, and it, especially for me, it's really worked its way into my heart, and I genuinely enjoyed watching the World Cup and following it, and I learned a lot about the game, and I learned a lot about the players who play it, and I got pretty into it, and I think that a lot of Americans did, especially because the American team was fairly competitive this year. I think that that's ultimately what it's going to come down to, because I don't want to watch a team that's going to lose in group play. I want to watch a team that has potential, and this American team showed potential. And I think if they can continue to grow and get better and recruit and find players that can be competitive and that can play at a high level, I think that soccer in America could become a very real and very big thing.
All right, you know what? Here's what I think. One, we're going to have just way too many goalies after this, because every little kid's going to be like, I want to be Tim Howard. Well, you know what? You need some other people. Other than that, I think the idea is soccer is a very popular sport for 4 and 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds. Huge. One of the biggest sports. The problem is it dies out after that, and I think a big issue is you don't have this idol in soccer. U.S. soccer, especially the MLS, is much smaller, and we're not a highly competitive league like many other leagues. So until our domestic league becomes much better, it's going to be hard for us to expand. The biggest thing is that we need to be bringing in international players, and more money needs to be going into the MLS. It is getting bigger, and it is starting to work, especially when you look. David Beckham probably was one of the best things that ever happened to U.S. soccer. And he's a Brit. That's the thing. There are other ways to help us improve U.S. soccer, and I think it becomes really from the MLS.
Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of that. I think something that you brought up that's really interesting is youth soccer, and I think that you're right. It does sort of starts to slope downwards after the age of 6 or 7. And I think that that's something that needs to be stopped. I think that if you can get kids interested and using that idol, that LeBron James, that Kobe, that Tom Brady, Peyton Manning of soccer, I think if you can get that guy, I think that that's something. And guys like Messi and Ronaldo, while they're not American players, they have had a significant influence on American soccer and and the youth soccer community. And I think that if you can find someone like that who's American, who can bring the American team and the MLS to greater success than it's seen. I think that the sky's really the limit for U.S. soccer, but I think that we're at a very low stage of it, and we're just starting to get into it. And I think in 10, 20 years, America can have a pretty significant soccer following.
And I think right now we are a top, 15, 16 team in the world, and that's the thing. But I mean, if you're going to be a top, really what you want to be the top 6 or 7 team, and right now we're not there. I think what you're talking about, or what I said earlier about how, you go from millions to just a few thousand. The thing is, most kids are going to pick a sport where they're going to pick it because of the pro league. They're going to pick it because they're idled or because a parent played it. Well, the thing is, there's not enough of that, and if we build up and we put stock into this league and bringing in other players, MLS is getting more popular in select areas. It is. And I think that with youth soccer, it needs to just transfer up. I've heard a very interesting criticism of the U.S. soccer system, and this was specifically from Jurgen Klinsmann, is the fact that in the U.S., the goal is to get a college scholarship at 18. The problem is, in Europe, they all go to their youth clubs, and they're all always building. Their entire life is built around being a great soccer player. And that model is not being used right now in the U.S., and that's an interesting model, but it's against what most U.S. sports are for. Right,
and I think when you look at a European soccer player, the way that they start is, if you look at the farm system in the MLB, it goes down to AAA. There are 8, 9-year-olds that are being recruited right now in Spain and in England and in other European countries, and they're prodigies, and they're going to become the next Messi, the next Ronaldo. And the U.S. simply isn't going out and recruiting like that. And on some level, I don't know if that's really right. I don't know if they should be recruiting 9-year-olds. But bottom line is that's how the European soccer teams have sort of dominated over the past few years.
Well, also, I think when you're looking at that, it's similar to what the NFL is doing. 8th graders are getting recruited right now to colleges. Mm-hmm. And honestly, college football is kind of like a farm system. Yeah. So it's the youth system. They may not have direct team affiliates, but they're basically a youth system right now in college football. So I feel like football is already kind of built in this model, but college teams aren't really good right now. DeAndre Yedlin, who was arguably the breakout star of the U.S. team this year. The fact is, he came from the Seattle Sounders youth system. He played with their U16s, their U17s, their U20s. It's their senior club. I think if you build up those programs, because as a soccer player, I know that club teams are a major thing, and especially in those areas, if you can be bringing in people, you're going to have success.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people who have an interest in, who are passionate about it, and I think that if along with these club teams, if high school soccer can become a bigger thing and a more prominent thing in the U.S., I think that the more places that you have to find that hidden gem, that hidden talent that you can bring and raise into a great soccer player, a great athlete, I think that the more opportunities you have and give out for that, I think that the better the U.S. team will be. And it might not happen by the next World Cup. It might not happen by the World Cup after that, but it's going to happen. As the U.S. interest grows, then it's going to happen. But I do have to say, my World Cup fever is over. I'm not going to go home and watch MLS every night. I'm going to go home and I'm going to watch the major sports. And I think that's another big issue that's raised, is while the MLS is growing, is it as entertaining to watch? Because when you're watching the World Cup, you're seeing the most elite talent. When you're watching the MLS, are you really getting the same level of play? It's like watching a high school game versus watching a pro game of any other sport in America.
I understand what you're saying, and I think that the biggest issue, and I've heard a couple criticisms about why soccer hasn't caught on. One, people have said they don't like diving in the U.S., which I think is just complete. It's just not true, honestly. Other sports have it, and there's some. Sure, they have a flair for falling down, but that doesn't. I don't think you can really attribute that. Another idea is that ad money is not nearly the same. Yeah. Because you have these continuous commercial breaks. So these ad companies have not come behind soccer as much. Mm-hmm. But I'm kind of starting to wonder if if soccer won't. I mean, I know it's starting to build up, but I think it is. Yeah, it's that issue of elite soccer is not as big, and till that is, I don't know if the U.S. can compete in 8 years. I don't know if we can compete in 12. I think it's going to maybe be even longer.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
All right, you know what? It's been a good show so far, but I think that's really all we have to cover. You know what? Really quickly, go follow me on Twitter at Karl_PM. It's Karl with a K. Just keep up on me. I post my little quips here and there, and I find it semi-amusing. Go like National Sports on Facebook as well, and follow us on Twitter at National Sports R. Both are National Sports, I believe, on Facebook, National Sports Network, or something in that area. It's been great coming to you. Daniel, any last thoughts?
No, I don't have a Twitter. I'm not going to self-promote myself like Karl, you dirty scumbag. But no, definitely like us on Facebook and check us out, and check out some of our other shows. We have some really great people putting out content. So the more you check out, the more we like you. So we'll see you next time. Thanks.